Hello again, everybody, and welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. GamecockCentral.com presents Gamecock Central Radio with Kip Bouknight. I'm Emerson Phillips, and we're coming to you from the Gamecock Central studios. South Carolina coming off a 4-1 win over USC Upstate last night. The Gamecocks are now 35-9 overall, 15-5 in the SEC. And Kip, interesting ball game last night. The Gamecocks used 4 different pitchers, and they got a lot of players that haven't gotten a lot of playing time this year into the lineup. So Coach Holbrook experimenting with some players that he might be inclined to lean upon once we get into the postseason here. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this win last night. Murray, Widener, Scott, and Johnson combining on the win for South Carolina last night.
Yeah, it was a good win for him. You know, it was a tight game, and late in the game, Madison Stokes gets a big hit, 2 RBIs, and pitching was outstanding. And I tell you, it's just I think it's going to be a tough situation for Chad Holbrook and company to make some decisions down the stretch, but I do think those decisions need to be made in the near future just so everyone knows what their role is when they get to the ballpark. I think it's just from experience and you know, having been in the bullpen before, it's nice to know what your role is. You need to know what, you know, type of innings you're looking to pitch and what type of situations you're going to be in so you can mentally prepare yourself. And, you know, we'll kind of wait and see what happens, you know, with the closing situation. But I do think it's something that we need to try to go ahead and nail down and make sure everyone understands their roles and is ready to move forward. And I certainly think Josh Reagan will be a big-time team player if Chad Holbrook decides to make the change in the closer role going over to Tyler Johnson. And, you know, it certainly would be a case if that decision was made. It would not be because of what Josh Reagan has done wrong, because he has had an amazing season and outstanding. I just think it makes our team better with Tyler Johnson closing the games out.
Kip, after the game last night, Coach Holbrook said that Brandon Murray is important to this ball club, and that's the reason he got the start last night. Obviously, the Gamecocks are set with their first 3 starters. Schmidt, Webb, and Hill have been outstanding on the weekends. But clearly Holbrook is looking for a little bit more depth in starting pitching as we move closer to the postseason. You know, you get into these weekend playoff series, the pitching can get stretched a little bit thin. So it seems like Coach Holbrook is looking toward possibly using Murray a little bit more as we move into the postseason.
Yeah, I definitely think Murray's a guy that would be great for South Carolina's pitchers to have to be able to use a good bit. You know, I think you need Murray and potentially even one or 2 more. I mean, you know, you get into postseason play and you get into, hopefully you stay in the winner's bracket in those regionals. But if you lose a game and you have to come out of the loser's bracket, you're going to have that spot starter, if you will. You're going to have that guy, and they need to be able to, you know, have some options. I mean, obviously Taylor Widener is an option, but Brandon Murray there for 2, 3, 4 weeks was not pitching very well. So, we can get him back pitching good. I think that only provides South Carolina with some much-needed depth in their bullpen. And I do think there's other guys that are plenty capable. You just hadn't seen them in a long time. So, you know, it would have been good last night if we could have gotten a lot more runs, because I think you'd have seen a bullpen get used in a good bit more amount of pitchers pitching, if you will. So, you know, I still think it's very, very important for South Carolina to continue to work on getting some new guys in there and having them prepared if and when that time's going to come when they're going to be needed.
Brandon Murray worked 3 1/3 last night, only gave up 3 hits, and then Taylor Widener came in. He worked 3 2/3, set down 11 consecutive batters at one point, struck out 4, didn't allow a hit. He was the winning pitcher. Reed Scott worked the 8th. Tyler Johnson worked the 9th, and Scott and Johnson needed just 11 total pitches to record the final 6 outs of the ball game. The Gamecocks scored the first one of the game in the 3rd inning. A little bit of small ball, 2 walks, a wild pitch, and an error. And then Upstate tied it in the top of the 4th with a leadoff double, a ground out, and an RBI single. And then in the bottom of the 7th, really to play it a game, Kip, Marcus Mooney laid down a perfect suicide squeeze that scored T.J. Hopkins. And this was important because Mooney had a couple of bunt situations in the last couple of weeks that he had failed to execute. So to have him get that bunt down when the Gamecocks really needed it in the 7th last night was a big play in the ball game.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, being able to play small ball, we talked about that before the Florida series. It's just very, very important for guys to be able to execute and do the right things, hit behind guys, get them moved over, get sack bunts down. All those things are going to be magnified. And if you look back at South Carolina's championship runs in 2010 and 2011, respectively, they did the little things. And I think that's, there's talent involved in that, but it's also just willing yourself to win and being prepared, and being very disciplined, but most importantly, putting the team first and, guys doing whatever it takes to win. And I think that's an ingredient we saw early on with this team. They like having fun. They like playing hard, and they come to the field every day and ready to win. And I think they're up to any challenge, as we saw in the Florida series. You know, you look back at that. I mean, South Carolina really could have won both of those games. I mean, it's so. I think it's great they went 1-1. It's certainly not a disappointment, but you know, this team is certainly ready for the challenge, and it was great to see the ballpark on Saturday night again against Florida was a lot more electric than it was Friday. So that was fun to see for the guys as well. I think a lot of them made mention of that, and you know, moving forward, you know, this Kentucky series is going to be a key one for them to make sure they stay focused. They got a great opportunity ahead of them.
Holbrook, after the game, said that Mooney has been such a fundamentally sound player throughout his career, so it was good to see him get that bunt down last night. He's been a terrific bunter throughout his career, and he really delivered in a key situation last night. Gamecocks took a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the seventh on that suicide squeeze by Mooney, and then the Gamecocks added 2 more runs in the bottom of the eighth after Upstate intentionally walked John Jones to load the bases, and that brought up Columbia native sophomore Madison Stokes out of AC Flora High School, who hit a single off the glove of the Upstate shortstop. Dom Thompson-Williams and Danny Blair scored on the play, and South Carolina beat Upstate 4-1. So, Kip, now we're ready for this weekend series against Kentucky. And we talked about the fact earlier in the week that Kentucky had been ranked in the top 20 much of the season, but they've dropped 2 or 3 in their last 3 SEC series. So, you know, if Kentucky's going to get into the postseason, Kip, they really need to take care of business at home this weekend. And I would think that the Wildcats are going to be on point. They know they've got to have this series. The Gamecocks obviously still in the lead in the SEC and very much in position to win the SEC East. So this is a critical series for both teams.
It is a critical series. And anytime you go on the road in the Southeastern Conference, I mean, if you take a look at all the standings of all the teams in the SEC right now, you look at their home record compared to their away record. And it makes a big difference. So going on the road in the SEC anytime is tough. And historically, Kentucky has always played South Carolina very, very well. You know, so I don't think this is a weekend at all. South Carolina can just go out and think that they're just going to show up and win, because it's not going to happen. Kentucky is a team that is certainly formidable and going to be a tough opponent for them. They're going to have to do, you know, the little things well. They're going to have to hit well, pitch well, play defense. I mean, you know, baseball's just not like football. I mean, if you're the number one team in the SEC usually does not lose to a bottom of the barrel or a team that's been scuffling like Kentucky, if you will, in the SEC. That normally does not happen because there's such a big difference in talent. There's a talent disparity there. In baseball, it's very, very, very difficult because it just takes one guy, one pitcher to be hot that day to make it a difficult weekend for you or a difficult day. So, you know, South Carolina just needs to continue to play hard, and you know, I think even if they happen to lose a game this weekend, it's not the end of the world. A sweep would be great. It would keep them in a great position. But, you know, looking for the Gamecocks to get at least 2 out of 3 this weekend would be a good deal.
This is Gamecock Central Radio with Kip Bouknight. I'm Emerson Phillips. You can download the Gamecock Central Radio app on the App Store and on Google Play to subscribe to the podcast. Search for Gamecock Central Radio on iTunes, SoundCloud, or other popular services, or just visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. Kip, we've got 11 games left in the regular season, 3 at Kentucky this weekend, 6:30 first pitch Friday, another 6:30 start on Saturday, and then 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Then the Gamecocks will have a midweek game against Presbyterian. Then it's 3 at home against a very good Texas A&M team that's been ranked in the top 10 in the country all year. Then a midweek game against the Citadel, and it's 3 at Bama to wrap up the regular season. So South Carolina still holding this 1-game lead over Florida. Florida's got 3 at Tennessee this weekend. Then they host Vandy for 3. Vandy's been in the top 5 in the country all year. And then Florida closes the regular season at LSU. So, the Gamecocks have got a difficult closing schedule. Bama has struggled of late, but they've been pretty good in conference much of the year. Obviously, you like Florida's chances against Tennessee, but then Vandy is very good. And LSU may not be quite as good this year as they've been in years past, but anytime you go to Baton Rouge, that's going to be a tough series.
It is. I mean, I think the most important thing for South Carolina to do is just stay focused, and they control their destiny. I mean, they're in a good position, and they control their destiny. They need to just keep continuing to play hard and keep playing one game at a time. They're doing the little things right now. They're taking care of business. They just need to make sure that they continue to do that the rest of the season, because if you start looking at who's playing who and what's going on elsewhere, it just it can confuse things for them. They need to just stay focused, and anytime you're in a situation like this, those are things that Chad Holbrook's definitely talking about in the locker room, making sure that the guys just continue to play hard and do what they do, and know what makes them click and come to the ballpark ready to play, and that's all you can do. And let the chips fall where they may. Obviously your goal is to win in a Southeastern Conference championship. That is a great goal to have at the very beginning of the season, and it's right there at their fingertips. And it's all about getting hot at the right time, and hopefully they'll continue to be playing good baseball, and hopefully their best baseball will be played in the month of June.
Kip, before we wrap it up today, let's talk a little bit more about the closer situation. Josh Reagan had been flawless practically all year until this past Friday night's game against Florida, when he gave up 2 home runs in the 9th inning, and Florida rallied to beat South Carolina 5-4. But the Gamecocks regrouped and came back on Saturday and won. But when Carolina had that 1-run lead going into the 9th inning on Saturday, Reagan did not come into the game. Coach Holbrook left Tyler Johnson in to close. Do you feel like Holbrook has made the change to Tyler Johnson as the closer now? Reagan did not pitch Saturday, and he didn't pitch last night against USC Upstate. So how important is it going to be for Reagan to get his confidence back if he's lost it? And I'm not saying that he has, but clearly the loss to Florida on Friday was a devastating blow for the Gamecocks. But they did regroup and win, and I'm wondering what the next few weeks may hold for both Tyler Johnson and Josh Reagan.
Well, I think it's important, again, like we talked about, it's important to go ahead and hopefully that conversation has happened between Jerry Myers and Josh Reagan and Tyler Johnson or Chad Holbrook. It's got to be, because if he's just kind of sitting there not knowing, then that affects his confidence. It's one thing to lose a game and go out there, but then when you don't really know your role, or you don't know what's going on, and there's that question or that uneasiness, that can create some tension, and that can create some uncomfortable situations for the young man. Again, I say this with all due seriousness. If Josh Reagan loses the closing job, he has done nothing wrong. Josh Reagan has been outstanding. I mean, Josh Reagan, you could not have asked. South Carolina would not be in the position they're in right now without Josh Reagan. So having said that, again, I've said for the last 2 months, in my opinion, Tyler Johnson was the guy that I felt like should be our closer. And maybe he wasn't ready to be at that time. Maybe there's a lot of bullpen work that, the behind the scenes that Jerry Myers may have been working on with him, and he definitely has improved. So, it's just kind of evolved, but I think the decision does need to be made. I don't think closer by committee or playing matchups is the right way to go. I think it needs to be, okay, you're our guy, let's go. And the fact that Tyler Johnson went in to pitch on Saturday, for me, tells me that it's probably going to be a matchup decision. And I just don't know if that's the right way to go. But they may do that. They may say they know that Tyler Johnson can close games, and they know that Josh Reagan can close games, but they may end up seeing a situation with a lot of lefties in the lineup, and there's 2 or 3 innings to pitch on a Friday or Saturday, and they may let Josh Reagan go, and then the next day there may be a handful of right-handers in there. So I don't know. I don't personally like that. I like knowing the roles, and I like giving it to them. And again, I think Josh Reagan, if he loses the closer's role, it's not because of his performance. It's just because there may be somebody that is better fitted for that role. Again, Josh Reagan has to be perfect to not give up a solo home run or not give up a bunch of hits. And late in the game, I don't know if I really like having a guy out there that doesn't throw. That would be like putting me, a former pitcher that was 86 to 91. I was a command guy. I mean, I would not think that using me as a closer would be the best for myself or for the team. And it's the same feeling I have for Josh Reagan. Josh Reagan could be an All-American starter, in my opinion. Unfortunately, there's just some really, really good starters ahead of him. But I truly believe Josh Reagan could go out and throw 7 innings and not walk guys and keep our team with a great chance to win. So it's good options to have. I just think the right decision needs to be made. In my opinion, that's Tyler Johnson, the closer.
No question that Josh Reagan has had as good a year as anybody on the Gamecock team this year, and if South Carolina is going to have success in the postseason, they're going to need both Josh Reagan and Tyler Johnson to contribute in the late innings moving into the tournament play. So it's been a hot topic this week, Kip, the closer situation, and you kind of feel for Josh Reagan. He had a rough night, and really that's the only bad night he's had all year was that Friday night game last weekend. But regardless of how it breaks down, both will need to contribute for South Carolina to keep winning.
Yeah, they will. Well, I mean, we have to. You have to have both of those guys, and like we said, we got to have a couple more guys, and hopefully Brandon Murray's one of those that will evolve and step up and make some hay down the stretch. So again, I think it just needs to be handled professionally. I think it needs to be handled now. I would definitely want Josh Reagan and Tyler Johnson to completely know what's going on Friday night at Kentucky. I think it's very, very important for them to know that right now. I truly do. So, they're in a good position. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem when you've got several guys you feel like you can use in that scenario. So again, it's a good problem to have. Let's just make sure we make the right decision and move forward.
Yeah, rest assured that we'll continue to talk about the bullpen and the closer situation. A very hot topic around Gamecock baseball this week, and we'll continue to talk about it more here on Gamecock Central Radio. Kip, we appreciate the update and your time. Thanks as always.
Thank you, Emerson. Yes,
all right.
Sir. Go Gamecocks.
That's Gamecock great Kip Bouknight, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and we appreciate you joining us here on Gamecock Central Radio. Gamecocks and Wildcats this weekend. We'll talk more about it next week. Thanks for being with us.